Hello all, welcome to NetBook and welcome back to Mulesoft tutorials. Today I'm planning to show how we can create a simple customer API in Mulesoft. So in my previous video, I explained about what is API, overview about API. Now using that concept, we are going to implement a customer API in Mulesoft. As I said in a previous video, we are going to implement these four functionalities of the customer. So creating a customer, getting the customer details, updating the customer details and deleting the customer details. For that, we are going to use a post method for creating a customer and get method for creating fetching a customer. I'm going to use a put method for fetching the for updating the customer details. Then I'm going to use a delete method for deleting a customer. When I said creating a customer over here, as soon as the request is received, I'm going to generate a customer ID. I'm going to store the data, customer data. Where I'm going to store? I'm going to store it in an object store in a Mulesoft. What is object store you should know. The object store is something which is used for storing the objects the data and access that data across multiple Mule applications. But to be frankly, we should not use the object store for this kind of a scenario. Customer API, I'm just going to implement over here. I want to use some storage location, either kind of a database or something, but I don't want to go into that much depth as the basics I'm going to provide as of now. As part of this basic course, I'm going to use this object store instead of database. So normally this object store will be used for application data, not business data. So the customer is kind of a business data, not application data. Like when I say application data, it kind of a tokens, maybe some kind of a validations. If you are doing those related information, those data only you can store it in a object store. But in this example, I'm going to take it for storing the customer data. So let's start for the first method. I'm going to implement first create a customer now. So let me create a project in a Mulesoft. First of all, right click new Mule project. I can say over here customer API. Click on OK. I'm selecting Mule server as 4.3.0 and clicked on finish. This is how the first basic project will be created. Now I want to create a flow for create customer flow. Now what will happen, the URL for this will be something like http colon localhost colon 8081 slash I want to give slash API and customer as my URL. So this is HTTP URL, right? To listen this request, what we should use? I explained that in my Hello World program. So we should use HTTP listener over here. Then I need to configure to accept the request from this hostname port number. So what I'm going to do, connector configuration, click on place over here, and I'm going to give HTTP and the local host will be 0.0.0, will accept, and the port number is exactly the same thing. And over here, if you see slash API is common, I'm going to use that as my basic path. That's it. Click on OK. Now my path is something over here slash customer. I should allow only those requests should allow, so I can put it over here. But this should accept only the first method, right? So what I can do under advanced, you can see allowed methods. I can mention over here first. If you try with this URL and get method will not accept that URL request. Okay, only the first request will accept over here. That's it. Now the URL definition is done. Now what I need to do, as soon as I receive a request, I want to generate customer ID. Okay, so that is the second step I need to do. Now I'm going to use set variable over here to generate ID. I can say customer ID. Okay. So how I can generate a new ID? You can use IID either one of the function. What will happen? It's going to generate a string. I will just show that in it is a unique string it is going to generate every time you request this one. So it is going to generate this kind of a URL, not URL, the string. So now that is my customer ID. I'm going to store that value. Okay, so I can say set customer ID. Okay, or you can say generate customer ID. Now what I want to do, I want to append the request with the customer ID. The request will come in a part of a body that is a payload, right? So what I can do, I can use transform message over here. So I can change it to JSON. I'm going to say customer ID colon. It is in under the variable of customer ID. I'm going to assign that. Then I want to append that value with my payload, what it is coming. Okay, that is what I'm doing over here. That's it. Then the next step is I want to store this data in object store. So to store the data in object store, let me add a module of object store. So if you want to use the features of object store, you need to add a module. Go to the add module. From this, drag and drop the object store to here. Now I want to store the data into object store. I'm just clicking over here. So how the data will store in object store? It is going to store in the way of key value pair. So this is the key. So I can say the key is for this customer ID, the value will be the payload. Okay. For the particular customer ID, the value will store, right? So I'm going to give that key as vars dot customer ID. The value will be the payload, that is a complete customer data is going to store. Where it is going to store? It is going to store in a default object store if you don't configure anything. If you want to store it that into specific location, then you can go to click on object store configuration. You can give here customer object store. So what does that mean? As soon as your server starts, it's going to allocate some memory for the object store. Now imagine this is your object store in Mule runtime. Now if you are going to create a specific portion over here, that is a customer object store. Okay, so let me change it the font size. Text I can say, so this is the object store data, going to store it under this portion only. If you don't give that configuration, so it stores in a default location. So otherwise it will store into this location. Okay, so the storage is done. Now your API has to return with some response. Okay, return response. So I want to return some response successfully. The customer is created. So I can use a transform message over here, and I can say JSON, and I can save over here customer ID, that is going to be the vars dot customer ID, and I can say status as success, and then message as customer created successfully. That's it. So this is the final output it is going to give. So this is the create flow. I have done it as of now. I want to implement a solution for whatever the data it is created. I want to retrieve and see it is created correctly or not. And I want to fetch customer details. I want to see what it is having for the particular customer ID. For that, I need to implement a get flow with this URL. So what I can do now, my URL will be different. So I'm going to use another HTTP listener over here, but my local host and port number is same, only the path is different. and it should allow only the get method, right? Under advanced, I can change it as get over here. That's it. That will accept the request now. Now what I can do, um, now what I can do, now let me go to, I want to retrieve the data from object store. I can retrieve the data from object store. But what is the key? It should be the customer ID, right? Customer, so it's going to be the vars dot customer ID, right? Now, from which object store it should retrieve? From the customer object store. If there is no value presented over there, what will happen? I need to give some value over here, what no customer found or something, right? So what I can do, was that customer ID. So I'm going to assign over here and status, I say failed. In case of there is no, if I'm passing 1 2 3 over here, if there is no record in object store, then only it will give this response. Otherwise it will retrieve the actual response from the object store. Message, I can say no customer found for the requested ID. Okay, that is what the message I'm going to give. But what is this variable, where it is available? I haven't created anywhere in my flow, right? So you have to create that variable over here. Set variable, I'm going to use it over here. I can save over here. But what is the value of this customer ID? Whatever the request it is coming from here, that is the value it should go. What is this called? It's called as a URI parameter, right? So I need to take it from the URI parameter. Where is that available? It's a part of attributes dot URI params dot ID. That value I'm assigning over here. That's it. So now you have implemented get flow and post flow for creating customer here. So you can change the flow name also over here by changing here create customer flow, and this flow is get customer flow. That's it. So let me test it these two scenarios. I will implement update and delete after this. So right click over here, run as mule application. Now meanwhile let me open Postman, which we created or installed in a during my installation video. Now I'm going to explain how we can use the Postman over here. So as I said, first of all, we want to test it with a create customer. This is my URL, copying that URL. Let it open my Postman. It is still opening. Meanwhile, it's going to deploy our application also in runtime. So now click on place over here. As soon as you open Postman the first time, it will looks like this one. You click on this place symbol over here, and over here this is my URL, and this is a post method, right? From the drop down you can select post method, and you need to pass some customer details, right? These details. So that details we need to pass it. So what I'm going to do, from the drop down select a body and raw data, and then select a JSON over here, and I need to pass some JSON data over here. So I have some JSON data. I'm going to copy paste over here. This is my JSON data which I'm copy pasting over here. That's it. So URL, method, and the body is important for this now. Now it is deployed my application. Let me test it. Send a request. You can see the customer is created successfully. The customer ID is generated, this one. That is how it is working. Now this is store the data in object store. Now I want to fetch the data and see is it correctly stored or not, right? So now what I need to do, I need to call the get method. So this is my URL again. This is going to be the get method, but I need to pass the customer ID, exactly which customer I'm looking for. This is the customer ID I'm looking for. Let's pass this one and send a request. You can see whatever the details I passed, exactly the same thing it is coming along with the customer ID is appended, right? In case of if I'm giving some wrong customer ID. I just changed some value over here and sent. It's giving some error over here. It's not error, I can say. It's coming a Java object. Let me do one thing. The reason is, if you see, I'm retrieving the data over here. Default value, I put it here. By default, it will take as a Java object. I need to convert that into JSON. You can use a transform message to convert the Java object into JSON over here. That's it. So what data? It is a payload data. I want to convert it. Let's save it. So let it publish. But when I retrieve with a valid ID, it is retrieving with a JSON data. Why? Because while storing the data, I pass the JSON data, the same data is returning as JSON. But this is no data found is giving that response. Now you can see no customer found for this. It is returning a JSON because of I just converted that value over here. So what will happen if I give the right ID over here? It will give still the JSON data over here for valid data. That simple it is for the create and getting the data. Now I want to update the data, right? So I can use similar flow again over here, and my path is, if you see what I have explained for the put method, this is my path. I'm going to give the path as this one. Under advanced, this is going to be the put method only should allow. So what will happen in case of the previous example if I test it with a post symbol here? It will give an error, method not allowed for this endpoint because of the post is not available. It is only get will allow because of in my flow I have only here get method. Okay. Okay, let's come back over here, and under advanced I given as post put method. Sorry. Now what I want to do, I want to check. First of all, I need to retrieve the value first. I'm going to retrieve the value of the customer ID. And before that, let me put set variable that is customer ID, right? Customer ID. From where it should take? It should take it from attributes dot URI params dot ID. Whatever the requested ID that is going to pass over here. Then after that, I'm going to retrieve that value. So I'm going to retrieve that value watch dot customer ID, and the default value I can give something. I'm going to give exactly same as what I have given in a get method over here. Okay, and from which object store I need to look? I need to look under customer object store. Now I'm going to check a condition. I'm going to check a condition over here, choice condition. I'm going to check if my status is not failed, then only I need to update it. Otherwise, I will say no data found. So payload dot status not is called null, and payload dot um, status not is equal to failed is equal to failed. Then I will say that over here there is no data for update. Otherwise, I will update the data. So we don't have any update in object store. I'm going to use a store the value over here as it is. I'm going to say var dot the customer ID as a key, and the payload is going to be the my value. But payload will be overwritten over here, right? So what I need to do, I need to create one more variable over here, and I can say that as var dot not vars, I can say request payload, and that is initial payload, whatever it is coming for update, the same value I'm going to put it over here. So I can say vars dot the request payload, initial payload, whatever it is coming that I'm storing in a temporary variable, that I'm going to store it over here. Okay. Now after that, what will happen? I need to give an update that updated successfully, right? So I'm going to use this kind of a structure message. I'm going to copy the data and I'm going to take a transform message again over here, and then I'm going to put it over here. Success, customer updated successfully. And in case of there is no data, what will happen? I can use customer ID successful, like won't say failed, no customer found for update. Okay, that is what I'm giving for the update flow. That's it. Then the next thing is I'm going to use delete flow. So I need to use a again listener over here, and my path is exactly same as the previous one. I'm going to use this one, and it should allow only the delete method. I can use the delete method over here, and then I'm going to create a variable over here. I can say set customer ID, where it is coming under attributes dot URI params dot ID, right? This is the value I'm putting over here. First of all, what I'm doing, I'm going to check the values exist or not. So I'm going to use a retrieve again over here. I'm going to say where's dot customer ID. I will put the default value as above again. So let me copy from the above. If there is no value found, it will give the same record over here, same details. So I'm going to give that details over here. And similar fashion, what I have used, I can use the same kind of a pattern. Um, Now over here, the same logic, whatever I have applied, same thing I'm going to do now. So under this, let me put a choice condition over here. If there is failure, that means no record found, I can say that no record found. Okay, and I can say that JSON over here, and the same value, whatever it is coming, the same thing can be goes over here. I can say that even directly payload, or I can use the same condition like what I have put it over here, or I can use the same message over here also, like no customer found for delete here. If it is the value is found, what I need to do, I need to remove that value from the object store. I can use a remove from here, and then this is going to be the var dot customer ID, and I need to look under the customer object store. I can remove from there. Then once it is removed, I need to give some response, right? So I'm going to copy paste the same content from above to here. Okay, so let me copy paste over here. Customer deleted successfully. That is what I can give. Let me check one more time. Am I selected correctly? Yes. Done. That's it. So this simple it is, the delete and update, because the first I will retrieve and check the value is presented or not. If the value is presented, then only I'm going to update. If the value is not presented, I will say no update happened, or no customer found for update. Similar fashion I'm using for the delete also over here. This is for retrieving, and if the value found, then only I'm going to delete it. Otherwise, I'm going to say no customer found. So let me rename these flows also. I can rename this flow. This is delete flow, right? I can say delete customer flow. And similarly, the above flow, this is, I can say update customer flow. Save it. So let it publish, then I will update it. So meanwhile, let me copy this URL. I want to update the record, so I need to use a put method over here. Under the body, I need to pass the latest payload. What is the updated value that have? Okay, so let me get this value. First of all, Control C, and I'm going to update the phone number with a +91 slash maybe some other phone number I will put it. Okay, this is what I'm giving. Okay, so name also I'm going to say updated or leave it. Akiji, I'm going to give something. Okay, let me done. It is update. It is deployed now. Let me send a request. You can see customer updated successfully. What will happen if I'm going to get the record now? It should have a latest record. It should have a latest record, but I don't see that latest record. It is coming back. What is the problem? Let me see. Um, where is that update flow? This is update flow. It is updated, but I'm sure I think I did a one mistake here. See that I didn't select object store this one properly. So it is updated. It is stored into the default object store. That's why. So let me publish this change again. Done the change. Now let me update that again this record in a customer object store. It is updated now. If I go and get the record, you can see now this is updated name and updated phone number. That's it. So in case of if I'm giving some wrong value over here, send a request. You can see no customer found for update. That's simple. It is for update. Let me test it with the delete method also. And you just need to select delete method over here. And this is your correct URL. This is the valid customer ID. When I send a request, you can see customer deleted successfully. What will happen if I retrieve now get? You can see no customer found for the requested ID. What will happen if I'm going to send this request again? No customer found for the delete. That's it. So we have implemented the 4 functionalities. We used get, put, post, and delete method, and we used object store. And here in this example, we used a choice condition. We are writing some condition. The default case will go to that in case of the first condition is not validated. Hope it is clear. Please, you can try to practice this. You will get more idea on this. Thank you for watching this video. That's it for today. Please like, share, subscribe, NetBook. Thank you.